Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going to look at something that is literally all around us right now. It's usually hidden behind drywall, tucked under floorboards, or just, floating invisibly in the air.
We're talking about the invisible plumbing of the digital world.
That's it. Invisible plumbing is actually the perfect way to describe it. We spend so much time obsessing over the shiny endpoints, the new phone, the sleek laptop, but we rarely think about the infrastructure that lets them all talk to each other.
Exactly. I mean, that's what we're unpacking today. Local area networks, or LANs.
Right, LANs. And I can already hear people's eyes glazing over. Local Area Network sounds like the title of a pamphlet from, 1998. But the source material we're covering today, specifically the work of Nima Zahadat, this is actually a story about, well, traffic control, shouting matches, and some surprisingly violent engineering.
You found the vampire clamps.
I was hoping you'd bring those up. It sounds like a Halloween prop.
It does, but it was a legitimate and frankly kind of terrifying piece of network history.
We are definitely getting to the vampires. But first, let's set the stage. Our mission today isn't just to define a LAN. It's to move past the whole plug-and-pray method of networking. We want to understand how my computer finds your computer without screaming over every other device in the house.
And that is the core challenge. A LAN, by definition, is just a network connecting devices in a limited area, a home, and office. The goal is simple. Share resources, files, printers, the internet, but managing that traffic, that's where it gets complex.
So let's start at the most basic level, identity. If I hit print, how does the network know which black box is the printer and which one is my smart toaster?
Right, because to the network, they're all just electrical signals. And this brings us to a bit of an identity crisis every device has. To work on a network, a device needs two different addresses.
Two addresses? That seems redundant. Why both?
Because they operate on different layers of reality, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
First, you have the MAC address media access control. Think of that as your device's fingerprint.
Okay, a fingerprint, so it's permanent.
It's physical. It's burned into the network card at the factory. It generally never changes. So if you take your laptop from here to Tokyo, that MIC address is exactly the same.
Got it.
It's a hexadecimal code. You've probably seen it like 0.18.2b and so on. It lives on what we call the data link layer. That proves what the device is. But then you have the IP address.
The IP address, and sticking with the analogy, if the MAC is the fingerprint.
The IP is the mailing address. And mailing addresses change, right? When you connect to the Wi-Fi in Tokyo, that network gives you a new IP address so it knows how to find you in that specific building.
Okay, that makes sense. Physical ID versus location ID. But here's the part that always confuses me. If I want to send a file, I usually use an IP address. How does my computer know that, say, IP address 192.168.1.5 belongs to the device with that specific MIC address fingerprint?
That is the magic trick. You need a translator. In networking, that translator is a protocol called ARP.
ARP sounds like a seal barking.
Yep. I kind of acts like one, actually.
Yeah.
When data arrives at a local network for an IP address, the network doesn't know which physical device that is. So ARP shouts.
It literally shouts.
Electronically, yeah. It broadcasts a message to every single device on the network saying, who has IP address 192.168.1.5?
And everyone hears that.
Everyone hears it. But only the device with that IP address replies. It says, I do, and here's my MC address. ARP then maps the two together in a little table, and now the data can be delivered.
So ARP is the bridge between the software world of IP and the hardware world of MA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without ARP, your data would just hit the local router and die. It wouldn't know which physical path to take.
That's a great visual. It's like walking into a crowded party and yelling, is anyone here named Steve? And waiting for Steve to wave his hand.
That's a perfect analogy. And it works great until the party gets too big.
Right. But before we get to crowded parties, I have to go back in time. You mentioned vampire clamps. I saw this in Dr. Zahadat's notes on physical architecture and topologies. I need to know what this is.
Okay, so to understand the vampire clamp, you have to picture early networking. Today, a network diagram usually looks like a star.
Right, with a central device like a switch, and then cables going out to every computer, like spokes on a wheel.
That's the star topology. But back in the 70s and 80s, the main shape was the bus topology.
A bus. Like everyone in a row.
Sort of. Imagine one single, long, thick copper cable, the backbone, snaking through the whole office. Every single computer had to attach directly to that one wire.
One cable to rule them all.
Pretty much. And this cable was thick. They called it thick net. To connect a computer, you didn't just plug something in. You used this tool with sharp metal teeth.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you would literally clamp it onto the cable, and the teeth would pierce through the insulation and bite into the copper core to make a connection.
Hence the vampire clamp.
Exactly. You were tapping the vein of the network.
That feels incredibly aggressive for office work. Hold on. I need to check my email. Let me just stab the internet with this thing.
It was effective. But you can see the problem, right? If that one main cable got cut, or a clamp was bad,
The whole network goes down, everyone.
the entire network. And finding that break was a total nightmare. But it wasn't the only shape they tried. The notes also mentioned the ring topology.
Token ring. I remember hearing about that. Was it literally a circle?
Conceptually, yeah. The computers are in a closed loop. Data travels one way, but the way they handled traffic was fascinating. They used a token.
A digital token.
Yeah. Imagine a talking stick in a classroom. The token just constantly travels around the ring.
Yeah.
If you want to send data, you have to wait for the empty token to get to you.
So you have to wait for the stick to be handed to you.
You grab it, attach your data, and send it on. If it arrives with someone else's data, you just pass it along.
That sounds orderly, but slow.
Extremely orderly, no collisions. But just like the bus, if one computer died or a cable broke, the loop was severed. The token stops. The network dies.
So fragile. What about the mesh topology? I saw that mentioned too.
Mesh is the opposite of fragile. In a full mesh, every single device is connected to every single other device.
Whoa. That sounds like a lot of cables.
It's a nightmare of cabling.
Yeah.
Impractical for an office, but it's incredibly redundant. If one line breaks, there are tons of other ways to get the message through. We use it for, like, the backbone of the internet itself, where failure is not an option.
So that's why the star topology won out for local networks.
Right. But the star needed a new piece of hardware in the middle. And this kicks off the great war between the hub and the switch.
I feel like I use those words interchangeably, but the notes make it clear that's a huge mistake.
Oh, it is. It's a massive sin in networking. In the beginning, we used hubs, and a hub is, well, it's dumb.
Dumb how?
A hub is just a repeater. So say you have 5 computers plugged in. If you send a sensitive file to the computer on port 5, the hub doesn't look at the address. It just takes that signal
And blasts it out.
and blasts it out to every single port. Ports 1, 2, 3, 4, they all get your private file.
So it's the town crier. It just screams your secrets to the whole room.
It screams to everyone. Now, the other computers are smart enough to ignore it, but from a security standpoint, it's a disaster.
And I imagine it's awful for traffic. If everyone's shouting.
That's the bigger issue. It creates a massive collision domain. If 2 people talk at once, the data crashes. The network gets bogged down.
So this is where the switch enters as the hero of the story.
The switch is the traffic cop. Unlike the hub, a switch has a brain. It has that MC address table we talked about.
So it learns.
It learns. It watches traffic and says, okay, MC address A is on port 1, the printer is on port 2. When data comes for the printer, the switch opens a direct connection only to port 2.
A whisper instead of a shout.
Precisely. It turns a chaotic party into a series of private phone calls. It reduces collisions, improves security. It completely transformed Ethernet.
And the notes also mention the bridge as a sort of middle step.
Yeah, the bridge was crucial. Before switches were cheap, you'd use a bridge to connect 2 hubs. It acted like a bouncer, keeping local traffic from spilling over and creating too much noise. Switches just ended up doing that job, but for every single port.
Now, you've mentioned collisions a few times. Even with switches, how do devices actually stop from talking over one another? I mean, at the exact same nanosecond.
That brings us to the protocol, and it has a very long, scary name, CSMA.
CSMAD. Break that down for us.
It stands for Carrier Sense Multiple Access with Collision Detection.
Yeah.
But it's really just politeness rules for robots.
Politeness rules. I like that.
Carrier Sense just means listen before you speak. Is someone else talking on the wire? If yes, wait.
Simple enough. But what if 2 devices listen, hear silence, and start talking at the exact same instant?
That's the collision detection part.
Yeah.
The signals physically crash, the voltage spikes, the devices detect this crash and immediately stop transmitting.
And then what?
They send out a jam signal, which is basically a loud noise that tells everyone, ignore that collision. And then, this is the clever part, they each wait a random amount of time before trying again.
So they don't just crash again?
Exactly. One might wait 10 milliseconds, the other 15. It ensures they get out of sync. It's surprisingly elegant.
It's like that awkward no, you go dance.
That's exactly what it is. And it works beautifully on wires. But It doesn't work for Wi-Fi.
Why not? The airwaves seem way messier.
They are, but the problem is a radio can't hear a collision while it's shouting its own signal. It's like trying to hear a whisper while you're screaming. You just can't detect the crash.
So if you can't detect it, what do you do?
You change the protocol to CSMA, collision avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
You try to prevent the accident before it even happens.
Yeah, well,
It adds extra steps. Before sending data, a Wi-Fi device listens, and then often it sends a tiny request to send packet. It's like raising your hand.
yes,
And the router replies with clear to send. Only then does the device transmit. It's a bit slower, but it's necessary to keep the airwaves organized.
it's amazing how much social etiquette is programmed into our machines.
It really is a system built on cooperation. If one device gets greedy and ignores the rules, the whole network gets worse for everyone.
So let's fast forward a bit. We've got smart switches. What's next? The notes talk about VLANs, virtual LANs.
VLANs are a game changer for businesses. In the old days, if you wanted the accounting team on a separate network from engineering, you had to physically wire them to different switches.
Which sounds like a huge pain.
It was. With VLANs, you do it in software. You can take one physical switch and just tell it, okay, ports 1 through 5 are accounting, ports 6 through 10 are engineering. Even though they're plugged into the same box, the switch treats them as totally separate networks. They can't talk to each other.
So you're creating logical groups instead of physical ones?
Exactly. It improves security, and it contains traffic. If an engineering computer gets a virus and starts shouting, that noise stays within the engineering VLAN. It doesn't take down accounting.
Smart. Okay, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The notes highlight this massive shift from IPv4 to IPv6. We're running out of addresses, right?
We effectively ran out years ago.
Yeah.
IPv4, the system we've always used, has about 4.3 billion addresses.
This sounded like a lot in 1980.
It sounded infinite. But today, you have a phone, a laptop, a watch, a TV. The world has way more than 4.3 billion devices. The solution is IPv6.
How much bigger is that?
It's not just bigger, it's exponentially bigger. If IPv4 is a golf ball, IPv6 is the sun. We could assign an IP address to every grain of sand on Earth and still have plenty left over.
That's mind-boggling, but the notes say it also changes how identity works. Does it still use that shouting ARP protocol?
No, and this is a key upgrade. IPv6 is smarter. A device can basically create its own address by combining the network part with its own MAC address.
Wait, so it merges the mailing address with the fingerprint?
Exactly. It integrates the MIC address right into the IP address. This eliminates the need for ARP because the physical identity is already part of the logical address. It's much more efficient.
That sounds great. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on the human element from the notes. We're talking about all this hardware, but how we use it is changing.
This is where it all meets the real world.
Yeah.
We're not just connecting offices anymore. We're connecting homes to the cloud. And the modern worker isn't in a cubicle managed by an IT team.
Right. They're at their kitchen table competing for bandwidth with their kids' Xbox.
Exactly. And the notes had a specific warning. Successful remote work requires good planning and self-discipline. The hardware can only do so much. When you move the LAN into the home, you become the network administrator.
That is a terrifying thought.
Well, most people aren't qualified. But you have to think about it. If you're on a Zoom call and someone starts a huge download, you're creating a traffic jam. That invisible plumbing is now your responsibility.
My home router is suddenly the most important appliance in the house.
It is. It's the gateway to your entire professional life now. If the plumbing leaks, work just stops.
So let's recap. We started with device fingerprints, the MAC, and mailing addresses, the IP. We traveled back to see engineers stabbing cables with vampire clamps.
A wild time for workplace safety, for sure.
We watched the dumb hub get replaced by the smart switch. We learned how devices politely avoid talking over each other. And we looked at the basically infinite future of IPv6.
It's really a story of bringing order to chaos. The network isn't magic. It's just a set of very logical rules designed to keep data flowing in a noisy world.
It makes you appreciate that little blinking light on your modem a lot more.
It does. And actually, before we go, I want to leave you with a thought on that IPv6 shift we mentioned.
Go for it.
We said its efficiency comes from putting your device's permanent MAC address, its fingerprint, right into your public internet address. But think about the privacy implications of that.
Right, I see where you're going.
If your permanent physical fingerprint is embedded in your public address, that creates a permanent link between your specific piece of hardware and your activity across the entire internet. With IPv4, your address changed a lot. You had some cover. With IPv6, We might be moving into a world where anonymity is much harder to maintain.
That is a little chilling. A permanent digital serial number broadcast to the world with everything I do.
It raises the question, right? Is the convenience of infinite addresses and easier connections worth the loss of that digital camouflage?
That is definitely something to think about next time you connect to the Wi-Fi.
Just remember, the plumbing is invisible, but that doesn't mean it isn't watching.
On that ominous note, thank you for guiding us through the wires. And thank you to everyone listening. We will see you on the next deep dive.